Morning, everyone. It is 9:45 on September 21st, 2023. We're here for a special meeting considering ARPA and the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund and the Local Tribal Assistance Consistency Fund. And it's project update funding with our RMO. So I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Matari, Brooks, and Duncan. And are there any changes to the agenda? Okay,
Nope.
Hearing none. Our first item is our project funding update. And Jody?
Yes. The Resource Management Office requests board approval for the following changes to the project funding under the American Rescue Plan Act and the local tribal consistency funds. First, under ARPA funding, we recommend that rubric, cybersecurity, and backup software should be formally removed from the ARPA funds budget and project listing. The procurement was completed but did not meet the procurement requirements for federal funds. In our recommendation, we propose the $500 previously set aside for this budget be reallocated $300,000 to the Justice Building expansion project to be expended on owner-provided permitting, testing, and survey cost associated with the construction, with any remainder be expended on the construction cost, and $200,000 to the administration project to be expended as needed on costs yet to be determined for the administration of ARPA projects for a total administration budget of $897.80. Second, regarding local tribal consistency funding, we request board direction and decision for what the remaining LATCF funds shall be budgeted towards.
Okay. So, questions for Jody on the funding?
Do you have any idea of what this building is going to come out at total cost?
I don't have that schedule in front of me, but I believe the total cost was around $38,000. It was presented to the board.
38 million.
Million.
With,
Million.
I'm sorry,
34.8 million.
for construction. And then the LCA piece came to a total of, and I can
I
try to
believe
pull
that did include the,
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't have that. I'll get that.
But that's just an estimate though, right? That's, we don't know yet because we're getting bids as we go along. Is that correct?
So the first bid package came under expectation, I think that was communicated to the board. And then the second one, we have preliminary findings that one too came under. So then we have the third bid package. So as it stands right now, we're on track to be at that price or under the construction number, which I'm sorry, I forgot to bring that to the meeting.
How much under?
Well, the first one, I believe,
Was around 400,000.
400,000.
We don't have the numbers for this week's.
And they're
Yeah.
calculating those numbers, but the preliminary is that it's going to be under.
So it's not a whole lot, it's under.
Well, it's good news that it's under, yes.
Okay.
That the bidding process is doing what it's intended to do, and that is to bring some predictability to the project.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Not really. I mean, I'm just trying to understand why we wouldn't allocate all the money to the building and not the administration, because 200,000 is a lot. I trust that's for people.
No.
No.
No, what is administration then?
The administration does include people, but primarily what we're looking at are going to be those things that are surveys, anything that has to do with all the ARPA projects, whether it be HVAC or the generator, so then that way we can make sure that we have sufficient funding for any permitting, testing, those types of things. So really, that's why that money was being requested to be allocated.
And that's outside of the building, the Justice Center?
That would be, well, yes. Yes, it would be, include the Justice Center, but also HVAC and also the generator or any other projects that would be related to that.
Our office has some questions. Brandy Falcon for the record. Just to give some background, this week we're actually being audited specifically on ARPA by our outside auditors, and they've made very clear in the documentation they're asking for. Everything regarding ARPA has to be explicitly stated on the record or in meeting minutes.
Okay.
So in the cases where minutes aren't specific enough, they're actually going back and watching our board meetings. So my goal going forward is to be a lot more specific on the record regarding ARPA decisions. So I also just wanted to go through the funding sources right now that are going into the building, and I do need some board direction on some items. We pass these out. So Arrow's passing out our spreadsheet that shows the total portfolio that the board approved
already
of
have one?
ARPA-funded projects. On the first page, you can see at the top all of the internal county projects, and then the Justice Building, and at the bottom, the subrecipient projects. This is a spreadsheet that we share back and forth with RMO often. Jody already mentioned the $500,000 for rubric. I was also going to recommend that since that's freed up, we dedicate that to the building. Purely from a financial perspective, it would make more sense to our department to dedicate the entire $500 to the building. I would prefer that ARPA be spent in totality before any county or tribal funds are spent. You can earmark those funds for the building if you want, but ARPA has a deadline to be committed and spent. Our funds do not. So our money can continue to sit in the bank and earn interest. We can continue to build fund balance until ARPA is exhausted, and then we can dip into county funds. So that's part of the direction I want from you guys, is in what gets spent first. And then I also wanted to look at, on this second page, it's a lot of detail, but the gray section in the top left corner, that lays out all of the buckets of funding and the expense costs right now that have gone into the building. So at the top, you can see All West and LCA, Boughton, everything added together. So far, we have $27.1 million going towards the building, and that's a combination of county funds, tribal funds, and ARPA money. So the maximum amount of ARPA the board has committed to the building right now is $26.3 million. That was passed by resolution in December of 22, I believe. And then at the bottom, I've kind of laid out some additional funding sources to get us to that $34.8 million. So it includes the full $500,000 that was going to go to rubric. It also, I was going to ask the board and RMO to look into the Children's Village. I don't know why that dollar amount is taking so long to be paid out. I want to know if Children's Village is going to comply with subrecipient requirements, and if we're not going to end up paying that money to them, I would want that money to go to the building as well, potentially. Obviously, it's the board's decision. And then the remaining tribal money, the restricted money in Fund 11 for court facilities, a portion of the trial court administrator's fund balance, and then lastly, dipping into our Fund 11 master plan of $4.2 million. That gets us to the full funded amount for the building, and that still leaves us $8.7 million to go towards jail pods, which I believe were 7.2 last I heard. That 8.7 doesn't take into account any fund balance we're going to build at the end of FY23. So again, keeping our money in the bank for as long as possible, spending grant funds first to get us.
So how come I didn't get this ahead of time? Commissioner Matari had it ahead
He's
of
my
time.
liaison, and about 10 minutes before the meeting, he came to my office and
Literally
grabbed his
before.
copy.
Okay.
And we've emailed that document out a couple times.
So I would say that we don't disagree with Brandy in terms of what she's laid out. Obviously, we concur, and we have been communicating back and forth. When she asked about the Children's Village, that one in particular has been a delay on their end. There was maybe a misunderstanding as to what they were to prepare for us, and we have not received it. We recently had a meeting with them, and I think that they're a worthy cause waiting to be able to provide them that funding. They need it desperately, and they are now working on getting that documentation to us. So I don't have any concerns around the Children's Village and them meeting the requirement. And that is something that, like I mentioned, that we had a meeting, and they are eager to present something to us, so then that way we can push that forward. So the delay on that would be their inability to show us the information that we needed to have at the time that we needed it, but now they're able to do that.
Okay. So as far as the $200,000 going to the admin portion, if admin is used to do what's needed for all of the different projects, like the admin HVAC, which we're just starting, and the jail generator, what happens if we don't put that money there and then we run out of money in that admin part? Because there's different things that have to be done with each project.
May I just answer that really quick? And that is that the projects, the way they were funded, were not funded with the idea behind it at the time for those administrative costs, whether it be permitting, whether it be surveying, and so forth. So really all we're asking is to create the funding source for those things, whether they be for the Justice Building, whether they be for HVAC, or whether they be for the the generator at the jail. So really, that's what we're asking, is to have it there. Any money that's left over, we agree with Brandy that we want to use federal funds. That has never been our intent, not to use federal funds first. Hence the reason why we're coming forward for this request to the board to put those funds, to put those funds and make them available.
Okay.
So when the board approved all those recommended projects for ARPA, there was $697,080 of ARPA that was not assigned to anything. So that money is slowly being spent down by the staff that are partially ARPA funded, one of our senior accountants and then some of RMO's staff. And then it's also slowly being spent on some of the like Hill invoices. It's already being spent on some administrative costs. So that we have a little over $300,000 still left of that money. And then when it runs out, it's the board's decision, do you want to keep all the salary percentages, how you want to continue to fund those. So that money is currently being spent right now on admin. So once that runs out, we could go back and address the need for more.
So I would just ask that it actually be where if we take the 200, we put it there for purposes of that to draw it down. It's similar to what Brandy is asking, but just slightly where we have it already allocated to admin, because the way we report to the Treasury is that we have an administration reporting requirement on 7.1, which is administration, and it would be nice to be able to keep it consistent in our reporting for purpose of saying, this is where the money is going, and this is the amount of money that we've obligated, and it's for these items. So it's really, for us, a reporting request. It doesn't really change, I think, what Brandy's ultimate intent and desire is. It's just providing that allocation to that admin line function.
Well, I think my request would be it's reported as part of the Justice Building project. So either way, it's a reporting thing. I would prefer it be reported as part of the Justice Building expense. But that's the board's decision.
I have a couple questions. Which way would spend the money faster, do you think?
What are the two, what do you mean? Which
Between
way?
the administration allocation of 200,000 or allocating it towards the
building?
Justice Center?
That's a good question. Construction is picking up now, so I don't know how often Boughton's invoices are going to start coming in. When they do, they're significantly more than a payroll would be. So they may come in slower, but they're much larger than, a certain percentage of ARPA going towards payroll every month. And I believe we've spent less than $5,000 or $10,000 thus far on like the Hill invoices and the other administrative stuff. I think the building is higher dollar items.
So,
Jody?
yes, thank you.
How would you answer that question?
Oh, I would answer it saying that the original 687,000 was agreed upon by the board at that time. And I agree with Brandy, it should probably be stated in a meeting so then we can make sure that it's understood. But that initial administration money was put for purposes of doing the things that were related to the head count. That's true. We did it as a projection, and we did it through the 31st of December 2026, and the number that was there also was to cover anything that had to do with surveys or Bailey doing a review of the projects and so forth. So that was like an administrative line, and payroll was one of those lines. Again, I understand that Brandy would like it attached to the building, and I believe that at the end of the day, however the board chooses, it's going to be a good answer. Whether we're going to burn it, admin, construction, soft cost, however we determine to do that, at the end of the day, we are burning the dollars first that are grant-related dollars, and then we'll go to the general fund. I think our request is for reporting purposes and also because it provides a lot more flexibility initially with having it being able to go across multiple projects as opposed to just one. So however the board chooses to assign those dollars, we'll obviously support, but that would just be the request.
Just out of curiosity, from the reporting perspective, given the new information of how the auditing is going on right now, where they're reviewing minutes and then actually reviewing these meetings
Yes.
in a video, sitting down and watching them, what do you think would be a better way to show the reporting, given the fact that the kind of scrutiny that we can expect with it?
We have obviously complied with the reporting on the Treasury side. I think as far as business meeting minutes, we can make a concerted effort to make sure that all the reporting that we do, if the board would like, we can come quarterly and give you an update as to where we are spent to date and all the projects, if you felt that that was necessary. I think that we've done a great job as far as doing the reporting from the Treasury side and all of the requirements that are going to be reviewed by the outside auditor. Keep in mind, the outside auditor already reviewed the project list to begin with before we even started and gave it a gold star. So I think that we are doing everything that we can to make it compliant and at the same time communicate that to whomever. We've had a lot of meetings on the ARPA projects in the past, and we certainly can pick that up if you think that was necessary.
And what's your estimated time of spending this 600+ thousand that's been allocated so far to the administration side?
I don't have that exact number, but probably as it sits right now, through the 31st of December, maybe 2025.
So about a year and 3 months. Year and 2.5, 2 years. And
But if you'd
Yeah.
be agreeable, we could go ahead and update our forecasting and then provide that to you, and so that way you'll have it.
And how quickly, Brandy, do you see the money spending with the construction project?
The ARPA money for the building,
Yes.
that depends on the construction schedule and delays. I think, Boughton actually has their own timeline. They're anticipating finishing the building in May of 2025.
So
So
that'll
we
be
just
sooner
were-
than the December.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I would almost argue, and now, one other question, and I'm sorry if I'm kind of holding everyone else up if they have questions. How easy is it to reallocate funds on an as-needed basis?
If it's ARPA funds, they
Yes.
have to be, and Jody, correct me if I'm wrong, we have to be set in our allocations by the end of 2024. That's required.
That is required.
But
Okay, so
until
we-
then, you have the option to reallocate as you see fit.
Okay, all right.
I would say the funds have been obligated by project, so that's how they've been reported to the
Yeah.
Treasury. They
Yeah, I
have
was
been-
actually asking because we had a meeting with our auditors this week, and I asked her that question. She said until that time, you can reallocate. Another thing I want to put on the record, because this is another question we were having from our auditor, they were asking what projects are we funding with the 10 million we took in revenue loss. I asked Jody, the explanation has been that the board decided to allocate the 10 million in revenue loss to projects eligible under the other categories of eligible expenses. What that means is we have encumbered that 10 million under the more strict compliance reporting of those other categories. We are not considering it just the simple revenue loss, if that makes sense.
And that is true. However, the construction project for the Justice Center is over the $10 million mark, and when you get beyond the 10 million, you're required to do your reporting in a very detailed way for all expenditures. Since that money is going to the Justice Center, then we have the requirement to meet that additional rigor, and it requires that every quarter we put through and have a justification.
And it was our understanding at the time of allocating funds and creating the task force recommendation that projects which were eligible under another category were not intended to be placed under revenue loss, and that category was meant for projects which would not otherwise be eligible, but which were government services.
Can I ask something, because for the audit, they're asking about earmarking, which may sound familiar, I don't know, regarding the revenue loss, that 10 million. So for clarification, I know we took the 10 million, but so,
We took the standard allowance.
okay,
That was required, that we had to do that during the task force, and not to put, I don't know if Steve is here, but
no.
that was part of the task force decision in speaking and putting those to be able to fund the projects that the board approved.
So when they asked me, they're asking me, and I say they, Ide Bailey, our outside auditors, they're asking me if we actually took revenue replacement.
No,
So that's the answer, no, okay,
we took the standard allowance, right.
okay.
We took the standard allowance.
You mean the 32 million?
The standard allowance that was allowed on the 10 million.
Oh,
So you
okay.
had to opt one of two ways. It was either going to be revenue replacement, or it was going to be a standard allowance.
Oh,
We
okay.
chose the standard allowance.
Okay,
Because it
so
was less rigor.
Okay, so no is the answer.
Yes.
Perfect, that's what I needed, thank you.
Lastly, we also need you to tell us the funding source of that All West Engineering approval on Tuesday.
Yes. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Jody, does that come out of the 300,000 for
Yes.
the?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the approved budget, which was not funded. And so, yes, it would be great if we're going to use ARPA funds.
perfect.
So if we can use those ARPA funds, because right now it sits as the general funds, and we want it to, if the board approves, we'd like it to be ARPA.
Yes. Okay.
So it'll be ARPA.
Yes.
Okay.
So, to be on the record, the 300,000 soft costs would be for fees, permitting, survey, testing, and that would include the All West. And let's see, is that,
That is correct.
okay. So I guess it's just still a matter of the 200,000 either going towards the other projects, Hill and some other things that are gonna have to be done for the jail generator and the admin HVAC.
Yeah, some of those cost studies are already being paid with, like I said, the 300,000 we have left right now. A
Sure.
little over 300,000.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, in my mind, it's like if we put the 200,000 towards admin, we probably won't need to address it again. If we put it towards just the one project, then we might need to come back and address it again. We're just so new in the HVAC and the jail project that we don't really know what those admin costs are going to be. So.
It would
does that
be
make
great,
sense?
yeah, to have the most flexibility.
Bill, do you have any thoughts? I think the driver for this whole thing should just be, what is the best option for reporting and spending the money the fastest? And, I'm not quite sure, if the administrative budget has been set through December 31, 2025. That puts us in a situation where if this money isn't spent, or we're getting close to our deadline of the end of 2026, I believe, then we have to find things to spend it on. Where I think on the building, I don't think we're going to have a shortage of expenses, certainly before May of 2025. And we have at least till the end of next year to make our final adjustments, because we'll have much better cost figures at that point, and the velocity of those costs coming into the county.
Yeah, so then to me, it makes sense to put it in admin until the end of 2024, because then all these other projects will be close to being finished.
Right.
And then we'll be able to make that switch and, fourth quarter, actually it'd be first quarter of FY '25 to put it towards the building, whatever's left
Or
over.
HVAC, or.
Yeah.
Yeah, jail.
Well, hopefully all that's done.
Yeah,
by
that's
then.
right. Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
As
That'll
long
be
as
done.
it's for that and not for staffing, from my perspective, again, however the money gets spent the fastest and it's easiest for reporting,
So it's currently being spent partially on staffing. So when you say not to be used-
additional staffing.
Yeah.
It's
no.
not for additional staffing.
No.
No. It
So
really
no
is.
more increases to the percentage of ARPA being used to fund people. That's what I'm hearing you say,
Well, I
when
don't,
you say no additional staffing.
Well, we are also looking at, instead of splitting people, putting people in one bucket. So in that case, it would be more. It would be more
More
on
use
person.
of ARPA.
Yeah.
So yeah, that specifically needs to be very clear on the record. What
Correct.
percentage of ARPA is being used for what employees?
Yeah, and we should be able to address that the first week of October. It's on the HR agenda.
So 2 weeks.
Yep.
Okay.
So right now, I just want to reiterate that rubric is now, it's already paid, general fund, and then we're going to take that 500,000. At this point, this early in the game with the rest of the projects, I'm still in favor of putting it towards admin. We're not going to increase any more admin unless it's agreed upon the record and we have a plan going forward. And the 300 to the soft costs of the admin building or the expansion for fees, permits, testing, surveys, and all that kind of stuff. So at this point, I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Jody, but our priority is spend all ARPA first, then the LACTF funds, and then go to general fund
yes,
on the
that would be
building.
our most request.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you're also dedicating all the tribal funds to the building.
Well, we haven't had that talk yet, but that's what I would suggest is all the LATCF funds go towards the building, because I don't want any project that's not touched by ARPA to be touched by LCTA. There's just too many strings. So jail pod specifically, I want that all general fund, so we don't have the more stringent reporting and all that stuff.
LATCF, you can just consider it's very simple.
Sure.
You just consider it general revenue. But I don't care what you dedicate it to, I'm just telling you.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, I would prefer it to go towards something we're already reporting on anyway.
Okay.
What about Children's Village? Those funds?
So those funds, if the board would be kind enough to provide us some time to respond to their submission and determine whether or not it meets the requirement, that'd be great.
Waiting their submission.
We are waiting for their submission.
And do you have an ETA on that?
They said they're working on it as fast as they can, and that's what we have at this moment.
And we'll follow up with them today.
How long have they been working on this so far?
There was a misunderstanding on their part of what they needed to do, and we've cleared that all up now. And so it has been since the beginning, but there was a little bit of a misunderstanding, and we've corrected that misunderstanding, and we'll follow up with them today and then provide the board with a response as to when they anticipate them going to be providing us the submission. And then that maybe we could at that time also give you a general idea when we'll come before the board for their approval.
Well, hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later.
Yes.
And then Jody, since 24 is our deadline, if for some reason that project falls through completely, then we could reallocate that fund
Yes.
to the justice.
Yes, if there was any purpose of the funds being then reallocated to justice, we would come forward with that request, yes.
Okay. All right, so I think we have everything ironed out except for the 200,000. So once again, because the other projects are in their infancy, I would prefer it to just not have to come back to us before the end of 24.
Well, I think we're going to have to do that anyhow, aren't we?
Well, not for that bucket. I mean, and then also, I guess that's another point, that if we are going to increase the personnel percentage coming out of the ARPA funds, then we would need to increase that line item anyway.
Well, I mean, I don't see why we have to increase the personnel expense.
Only if you wanted to make people 100% out of ARPA.
Well, that's from a formula standpoint. I still have never been able to fully understand the workload of people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's never been fully something that I can grasp. You know, and not to rehash previous meetings, but, you know, just the way that workload had to be allocated when one person switched from full-time to contract and all that. I've still had a very difficult time. And I just want to make sure that this money gets spent fast on the Justice Building, which one commissioner here wants, another commissioner here doesn't want, and, you know, to get this behind us. But as far as how we do this, you know, the question is, where is that money going to be spent the fastest? The 200,000 for ARPA-related projects. And what I heard is that it's been decided until the end of 2025 with the previous allocation. And so how is this additional 200,000 going to get spent sooner than that? Was this not already taken into account?
Would you like me to answer what?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
So the personnel will burn faster if you dedicate resources to it, because currently that's not the case. There is not that 100% going towards ARPA. Second, the surveys, the consulting fees, and those things that would be associated would come out of that pocket. And I believe the HVAC will be the one that has the most significant costs that are going to be related to that. And therefore, I believe that by putting it in admin, it'll burn fast because of HVAC, the generator, and the personnel. I do believe that it will.
It'll burn faster than what you expected before in your
Yes,
initial projection.
Yes, because now.
If the funding is increased to 100% ARPA. That's what you're saying,
Yes.
right? Yeah, the staff have to be moved up to 100% ARPA,
Yeah.
and then the money will be spent faster, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, and just out of curiosity, is there not any additional bandwidth throughout the entire county where we can have some people who may not be at 100% capacity and have them help out with ARPA and then allocate some of that? I mean, every person in the county is working at 100%.
My
Because-
staff has capacity. Our
Okay.
ARPA accountant could take on more duties from RMO if needed.
Okay. So, yeah,
it-
I mean, with 100 positions down countywide, I didn't think anybody had any more capacity, but that's a discussion, that we can have. So I guess I'd be perplexed as why you think the RMO's not handling all the ARPA. that they
I
need
didn't
to.
say that. You asked if anyone has capacity. If they're looking for other staff to take on ARPA duties, it should be my office or RMO. We don't want to ask another department like the recorder's office to take on ARPA duties. So it would be one of our two offices.
Sure.
So if you're saying that they're overworked and they need help, my office can step in and take on some of that.
Okay. I never heard anybody say that.
Oh, he was asking, is there anybody
I just
else
asked the
who
question.
has
Oh, okay.
capacity?
And she stepped up and just gave an answer, so.
Okay. All right.
Well, as long as the money gets spent faster and efficiently, but I will say that I'd like to have, recurring follow-up on this stuff because we were supposed to have a total dollar amount given to us in August for this Justice Center, and it never was given to us in a formal board meeting. And so I just want to make sure that we're not saying yes today to get through these situations so that we can kind of forget about it in the future. I think
No,
it's-
they're trying to schedule their next, Boughton's next meeting with us to give us an update on all the financials.
Yeah, but it was promised, I think, in April, because I remember asking
Yeah.
that question, and
Yep.
it was never followed through with.
Well, the follow-through was the 3 bid packages. That was
Well,
the follow-through.
The follow-through was supposed to be the total dollar amount, and then we could have a clearer, more in-focus picture of what we were looking at. It
But
was not meant to be the.
I don't think it's possible to get that this early, only because
I never said
everything
an
changes.
exact dollar amount. What I said was that it would be a clearer, more focused, because what they said was, as time goes by, we will have a better idea of what to expect. So I was hoping to get a better idea in August, not the exact number.
Right, well, that's what the 3 bid packages were for.
Yeah, again, it was not a total number. It was a sliced and diced, presented piecemeal number.
Well,
So-
we can have Boughton do that. Caitlin?
Yes. If I may, I believe that what Boughton presented on June 26th was the complete number, and they also showed it in the form of the three bid packages, but they showed a total estimated budget. That budget was further refined and should have been presented once more in August, but was not as we were working on bid package 1. But we do now have a 60% number, which is upcoming within the first or second week of October. I think we're looking at the second week of October for the 60% completion accuracy number.
So, okay. All right.
All right, so we have an action item, so we need to put it in form of a motion, the changes that were just made. You want to try that, or you want me to try that?
All right, let's see. I move that we reallocate the American Rescue Plan Act money for Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, Local Tribe Assistance Consistency Fund from the Kootenai County IT Department of $500,000, with the amount of $300,000 being allocated toward the Justice Building and $200,000 allocated towards administration.
I think that covers everything. Second?
Bill Brooks,
Hey,
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right, and so just, would we like to do another motion to put all the LATCF funds to that, or you think your motion covered that?
I don't think my motion would have covered that
No.
specifically.
You'd have to do it specifically,
Okay.
please.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I move that we allocate all of the LATCF funds to the Justice Center.
Second.
Bill Brooks,
Nay.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. Item 2, Boughton Construction Change Order Number 1, Builders Risk Insurance Action. And Jody, you want to walk us through this?
Sure. For clarity's sake, the builder's insurance was in our budget, meaning the Justice Center budget on our end. And ICRIM came and said, no, county cannot hold that, has to be held by the contractor. So we are moving that expense from the county to Boughton. This is what this change order represents. So the change order for the contract between Kootenai County and Boughton Construction, the builder's risk insurance policy is to be provided by Boughton Construction and not by the county. Therefore, a builder's risk premium in the amount of $74,184 is to be added to Work Package 1 for a new total of $5,182,822.
Okay. And I would recommend that we do follow up with this on a business meeting.
Okay.
Just so it stays in the right.
Sure,
So
you
we can
bet.
find it. So, questions on that?
Nope.
Okay, so motion?
I move that we approve the Boughton Construction Change Order 001 for the builder's risk insurance.
Second.
Bill Brooks,
Nay.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. All right.
And that is ARPA funded, just to clarify, right? That change order. For the record, I just want it
Correct.
out there, that's
Yes.
ARPA funded.
Yes,
Thank you.
ARPA funded. Yes, thank you. Okay, public comment? None, 10:22, meeting adjourned. Is anybody